It's match day 12 of champion predictions from the On-Sport podcast. I'm Craig Owen. With me, as always, is Daniel Cody and Charlie Betts. First of all, give this video a like, subscribe to this channel, and you can follow us on Twitter at HonestFootball3. Let's look at last match day's results. There were 3 perfect scores. We all got 1 each. 2 of them were 0-0 draws. Daniel got 0-0 Brentford versus Middlesbrough. Charlie got the 0-0 for Sheffield Wednesday versus Millwall. However, I got 3 points for Barnsley's win against Derby. So overall, looking at the results on the screen, Daniel and Charlie both got 7 points to my 6. So the table looks like this. I still lead at the top on 74 points with 13 perfect scores. The gap has slightly closed with Daniel Cody on 70 points with 8 perfect scores and Charlie on 64 with 9 perfect scores. Let's move on to match day 12. Let's start off with the Friday night football. It's Coventry City versus Birmingham. It's the St Andrews derby. Coventry, they lost to Watford last game, 3-2. They're quite unlucky. Charlie Betts?
Yeah, do you know what? We say about them not being able to score, and yet they probably scored 2 goals against one of the best defensive teams in the league. So I don't know how we now go to predict them next time, because I don't know. There is obviously there's good elements to Coventry's play, but I think sometimes it feels like when they implode, they go big, and it all just unravels. But they have got goals in them against some of the better teams. I genuinely don't know how to predict this one, because against teams in and around them, they haven't fared as well as what they actually have against the top teams. So I don't know how do you set up for that. It's bizarre. So yeah, good luck to us trying to predict this game.
So what have you gone for?
Well, on that note, Craig, I'm actually going to go for a Coventry win. Birmingham just let me down week after week. There's a win, there might be a draw, there might be a loss. I haven't got anything against the club, but I find them so difficult to predict. Everything we know about Ika Karanka doesn't seem to apply at Birmingham. You know, everything we say about him being defensively sound, he doesn't score. I just don't get it anymore. So Coventry, I feel like, have got a bit more of a structure to them, a bit more of a style of play. So for that alone, I'm going to go for a Coventry win. They've got a couple of goals in them, but not that many, I don't think. 1-0 Coventry.
Cody, Coventry are pretty good on a Friday night.
Well, this is the thing that's conflicting me the most, is that Coventry in their last 5 games, they've conceded 13 goals, at least 2 in every match. But the only win that came in those 5 was the 3-2 against Reading on a Friday night. Their previous win before that was a Friday night. It's so difficult because every time they play at home on a Friday, we should be going for 3-2 Coventry. But Birmingham are so inconsistent. Like Charlie said, the last 2 they've lost at home, but their last away game, they won at Preston. But Preston are awful at home. You just can't work it out. But they're unbeaten in 2 on the road. Everything's telling me to go 3-2 Coventry because it's happened the last 2 times. But that run's got to end eventually. So I'm going to go for a slightly more modest score, but they're going to be goals. I'm going to go for 2-2, Desmond Craig.
Ooh.
I have to agree on a draw, to be honest. Not the same scoreline, but the draw. Both teams in and out of form, to be honest. Birmingham obviously lost their last 2 games. Coventry, on the other hand, lost 4 out of 5. So it doesn't look good either way. And that's why I'm going to go straight down the middle. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Up next is the early Saturday game. It's Bournemouth versus Reading. 3 defeats in a row now for Reading. We did ask last time as the bubble burst, and it certainly has now. Cody, Bournemouth, on the other hand, they got their win after losing their first game of the season.
Yeah, Bournemouth back in form. I mean, they'd gone unbeaten. They lost 1 game. All right, they've not been convincing this year. But that Birmingham away game was the first time it was a convincing away win. That gives me a little bit of hope for them. Reading, the wheels did fall off the wagon a bit, but the international break might have come at the right time for them. It looks like a couple of the key players are going to be back fit again. They're going to have slightly more to choose from. And actually, as a result, I'm finding this a real difficult game to predict. I mean, the only problem I've got is I wanted to go for my favourite 1-1 draw until I saw that Reading had conceded 3 in all of their last 3 games. So despite all of my head and my heart telling me to go for 1-1, I'm going to go for Bournemouth to nick it by 2-1. But I think Reading will be much improved.
I think Reading will actually be a bit better than they have been for the last 3 games. To be fair, they're unlucky against Stoke. Totally dominated the game and somehow lost 3-0. It's very strange to see. Yeah. Maybe it's the Michael O'Neill way that you guys love.
They did it at Luton as well, to be fair.
Yeah, so they seem to have gotten the away tactic spot on Stoke. But we'll get on to Stoke later on. Bournemouth, on the other hand, yeah, great, very convincing. We didn't expect them to come out of the races like that. I don't really want to go for 4 straight defeats for Reading, but I actually have predicted the same scoreline as Cody as a 2-1 Bournemouth win. Charlie?
It is. I mean, Bournemouth are unbeaten at home. You're going to have to say eventually that's going to come apart. There is part of you that thinks maybe this international break could be a blessing for Reading. come back a bit more, what's the word? A bit more resilience. I think the tough thing is maybe there's not as much pressure on Reading now as maybe there was in previous 3 games. So there is a little inkling of me that thinks, could they be, they've got obviously goals in them, they are a good side. Could they shock Bournemouth? The problem is, I don't know if they're going to have enough to beat them because Bournemouth are very good at home. So against all the logic of Bournemouth being unbeaten at home, I'm going to go keep that going, but I don't think they're going to win it. I'm going to go for a draw. So they've had as many goals in it because Bournemouth don't score many themselves. 1-1, Championship favourite scoreline.
Up next is 2 teams who recently appointed new managers. It's Barnsley versus Nottingham Forest. Forest have picked up a few wins recently. Christian is finally starting to gel side. Barnsley, on the other hand, has started to pick up a few wins. And Ferland Ishmael was nominated for Manager of the Month. Totally surprised me. I don't know about you two.
I don't know. Sometimes I think that Manager of the Month can be 2 numbers based. And I think actually, if you take into context the situation he walked into and what he's done, I know it's only a very short space of time. I don't know. Maybe it's good. It's refreshing to see someone getting nominated who hasn't just won 6 out of 6 or however many there is that month. So yeah, no, I've got no problem with that. But whether he continues that is another story.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this could probably be the game of the weekend up for me. I'm going to actually go for a 2-2 draw. Cody?
Again, it's one I'm a little conflicted on, which I guess applies to every game in the most unpredictable league in the world. But Forest, as you mentioned, they've got back-to-back wins, but they were at home against 2 of the 4 relegation favourites at the start of the season. But in Barnsley, they're playing another one of the 4 relegation favourites at the start of the season. Barnsley have picked up 3 wins under Ishmael. They were brilliant. But the one game I watched, which was the Cardiff one, they could have lost by more than 3. It's very hard for me to predict. As a result, with Barnsley being at home, 2 back-to-back wins with a clean sheet on their own soil, I don't want to do it to Chris Hughton, but I think I'm going to go for a similar score to Craig. It's only going to be 1-1 though, because that's the best championship score, and I think they'll both be a bit tighter, but I can't see either side losing.
Charlie?
I'm going my Moneyball approach. Now, Forest have only won 1 away from home. Barnsley have only lost 1 at home. So the numbers all point to, I know I'm bottom of the league before people start shouting at me in the comments about how it's not effective, but I don't know. I mean, it helps to draw some points back on YouTube. But on a serious note, Barnsley at home are a difficult proposition. Forest, my only concern with Barnsley is it's just started to build up a bit of momentum and then you've got an international break. Now, we saw what happened with maybe Bristol City as an example, teams like that is what effect it will have on. I'm hoping, though, 2 weeks under the manager has maybe given him even more of a chance to imprint his sort of style. So I'm actually going to go for a 1-0 Barnsley win. There you go.
Up next, Bristol City versus a managerless Derby County. We did do a Derby County for the Cocu sacking video. Please check that out on the eye above. Wayne Rooney is going to take charge of the game against Bristol City. How do you think he'll do, Cody?
I don't really know on this. What I want to know is something that Charlie mentioned in the episode. Is he going to play himself or is he going to focus on management? We've talked about this player-manager situation before. It doesn't always end well. And there's a lot more pressure on you. And Wayne Rooney's probably one of the players in England in the last 15 years who's had the most pressure on him. To pile even more on himself would be a ballsy statement. But equally, he's one of England's best centre-forwards in the last 15 years and Derby aren't scoring goals. So I don't know how that's going to work out. I guess for him, it's an audition for the job. But I can't see him getting a result out of this one, Craig. I really can't. Bristol City are back in form before the break. So I can only see another blank for Derby, another win for Bristol City. I'm going 2-0 for the home side.
Charlie?
Yeah, I haven't gone for the same scoreline, but I can't see Derby getting any goals. The thing is, as well, normally we talk about new manager bounce, but you're talking about a player who's been part of the part of the squad that's led them into that position. So is it going to have that effect? Probably not. I actually think, I've mentioned it in the episode, so I'm not going to go over it all again, that player managing is so difficult. I think he's really going to struggle, unfortunately, in his first game against Bristol City. He's had a break, 3-0 Bristol City. I think they've got a few goals in them. And ironically, Chris Martin might even get one of them.
I did have the same scoreline as Cody, is 2-0, because I think it's saying so obvious. But I'm going to change it because everyone probably think I'm just copying you now and I'm just holding that gap. Oh, do you know what? I'm going to change it. I'm going to go for, I think they'll get 1. I think they'll get 1, Derby, and it'll probably be from Wayne Rooney's free kick. But I think they're going to concede 3. So I'm going to go for 3-1 Bristol City. Up next at Kenilworth Road, it's Luton Town versus Blackburn Rovers. Last season, Blackburn was the final game of the season, and Luton won 3-2, thanks to 2 Blackburn own goals, but we'll happily take that. Coach, a 1-1 draw for Luton against Huddersfield. Do you think the fans will be a bit disappointed that they didn't hold on?
I don't know, to be honest. I think in the context of the week, with the Rotherham win as well, I think it was a good week for the club. I don't think any of us complain in truth. We're 10th in the Championship, if I'm right, going into the international break. We're not many points off the top. We're absolutely flying. We've got a record number of players away on international duty, which is my only concern. What worries me more though, Craig, is the home form, because we drew against 10-man Forest. We got battered by Brentford, and it was a sound pasting. We talked about the Stoke game a bit earlier on, and they're up against Blackburn, who are the most inconsistent side in the league. Now, Blackburn haven't lost in the last 2 games, which makes me think that an awful Blackburn performance is coming, but I can't see a Luton home win. So I'm having to, as much as I don't want to, play safe with my favourite scoreline, or am I going to put more goals in? No, I'm going to chuck some more goals in, Craig. It's going to be 2-2 again.
2-2. You just took the questions that I had for Charlie. Charlie, what do you think to Luton Blackburn?
To be honest, I think on that front, I haven't been looking at his notes, but I do agree with Dan in the sense of I've backed Luton at home 3 times in this game, and 3 times they've let me down. And I'm not having a pop, but genuinely, Luton's home form is not a patch on their away form. If this is a flip the other way around, for me, this was a hands down away win, but obviously it's not. Blackburn are the most erratic team in the league. This is a predictor's nightmare. I don't know. Part of me does think the international break, maybe those people coming back a bit leggy. Blackburn do have goals in them sometimes. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. Again, a nightmare to predict. I think, I mean, you probably won't like it, and it'll probably be a draw, but I think, no, I'll tell you what, I think Blackburn might sneak it. I don't think this will be Luton's week. I think, some cracking results prior to the international break, but I think it's coming back after that. Blackburn away win, and I'm going to go for 2-0. 2-0 Blackburn.
Well, one of us is going to get at least a point.
You always do a home win.
I always do. I'm going to always back Luton until I actually think, do you know what, they actually might lose this one. Actually, I think, Luton, obviously, 4 points the last 2 games. Blackburn, 4 points the last 2 games. To be honest, I think Blackburn will probably be happy with the 2 of what they've got. I think Luton will probably look at those 2 games and probably say, I think we can get 6 points. But, the inconsistency of Blackburn again, it's been like a roller coaster for them. So I'm actually going to say Luton are going to win this one 2-1, because Luton always concede a goal at home. Up next, it's Middlesbrough versus Norwich at the Riverside Stadium. It's a tough one, this one to pick. Ooh, I think Norwich have struggled in this one. I think they've been absolutely delighted to get a point. And that's what I'm going for. I'm going to stick with a 1-1 draw. Charlie?
Middlesbrough are still unbeaten at home, so I can't see anything but either a win from Middlesbrough or a draw. I think Neil Warnock has obviously got something going on very good at home anyway. Do you know what? I'm going to go for a Middlesbrough win. I think Neil Warnock is clever enough to outfox a very good ball playing, but maybe not quite physical enough Norwich. I think it'll be a bit of a very much of a gutsy performance from Middlesbrough rather than a technical one. Blood and thunder, that kind of thing. I don't really like that term, but you know what I'm getting at. I think they'll basically just outwork Norwich. I think they'll stifle them in key areas. Neil Warnock's had 2 weeks to prepare for this as well. Although we joke about him, he's a very diligent, hard-working manager. So I think he'll have his team set up perfectly for this. So it's what score. Middlesbrough don't score loads of goals. Norwich can sometimes leak them. So I'm stuck between 1-0 and 2-0 Middlesbrough. But I'm going to go for... Do you know what? I'm going to go 2-0. I think Borough might get one. And then, as I've always said in all these predictions, it never happens, but they'll get a late one in the 92nd minute or something like that when Norwich will bomb forward. 2-0 Middlesbrough.
Coach?
Well, I'm glad that Charlie opted for 2-0 because I went for 1-0 Middlesbrough. The reason for it, I mean, this is the hardest one for me. Both teams are unbeaten in the last 6 games, which makes it awful to predict, to say that one of them's going to lose. Between the 2 of them, their last 4 games have come down to 3-0 draws and a 1-0 win. So everything was telling me to go for 0-0. But Middlesbrough, the last 2 home games, 1-0 at home to Forest, 2-0 at home to Coventry. I actually think Middlesbrough will be in the playoffs this year now, after the start of the season. Definitely. I'll go that far. But I don't think there's many goals in them. Norwich have been better defensively. So as a result, I'm going to go for 1-0 to Middlesbrough.
Next up, Neil Harris returns to Millwall. They are Millwall versus Cardiff at the New Den. Oh, this is going to be a hard one to call as well. I'm going to start with Daniel Cody.
Well, it's funny how you always do that on the hardest ones and then miraculously have the same scoreline as me.
I've already had the scorelines done.
Look, Millwall, a similar story really. Both sides have not been losing many. That Cardiff display against Barnsley, they were brilliant. And either side of that, they've lost in disappointing performances. So they're almost starting to become a Blackburn after a very consistent period of 1-1 draws. Millwall have drawn their last 2 0-0. And after the Huddersfield spanking at home, they needed that. They've got the manager and the coaching team back in the dugout, back working day in, day out on the training ground after the isolation period. So although they had a few internationals away, most of that squad will have been working with the manager. And I think they'll be better prepared for this game. Given Cardiff's poorer performance away at QPR, I'm going to go for Millwall to nick it. And I think it will be by the same scoreline they beat Luton about a month ago. 2-0 to Millwall.
I agree on a Millwall win. Garrett being back does make a bit of a difference. Obviously, that see figurehead in the dugout. Obviously, they got the point against Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't like Cardiff because like they've got good players. Obviously, Kiefer Moore up the top. The problem is I think they're too one-dimensional. These two teams are pretty one-dimensional. Shall I say? But I think Millwall have just got enough. I'm going to go for 2-1. Charlie.
Probably going to regret this, but I'm going to go straight down the middle. And the reason I tell you that is Millwall at home are not quite. They don't lose many, but I think they've only won at home so far. So they're probably draw specialists at home. Cardiff, mediocre away, don't score a lot. So I'll be honest, even before we started this, I was looking at that thinking either 0-0 or 1-0. The problem with a 0-0 is when a goal goes in, it really annoys me. But I just think coming back from the national break, Gary Rowett's not going to want to lose. It's his first game back. They'd like drawing at home. I'm gonna be bold, 0-0, no goals.
Up next at Deepdale, it's Preston North End versus Tony Pulis' Sheffield Wednesday. Tony Pulis' first game in charge after he's been appointed after the sacking of Gary Monk. We really spoke about the sacking of Gary Monk. Check over the art and the eye above. Charlie, we said Tony Pulis would be a good shout for the Sheffield Wednesday job. We didn't think he'd be the right man for the job, but do you think Sheffield Wednesday will get something out of this game?
Oh, yeah. I think the point we were trying to make is probably short term. Pulis, there's nothing wrong with his appointment. I think what we were probably alluding to is maybe as a longer term appointment, there might be better options out there. You don't get a long time with Pulis really when he is in charge of the club. So, but in terms of putting out a fire, he's probably one of the best in available at the minute. So, yeah, will they get out of where they are? Yes. Will they get a result? Preston are at home, so I have to say yes, because Preston's home form is absolutely woeful. I'm not using the word banker. I'm not going to jinx it. But you're talking about a team that haven't won at home all season. They've lost every single game, and then a new manager bounce. It has to be a Sheffield Wednesday win. They've got some good players. It's 1-0 or 2-0 for me, and I'm not sure. New manager bounce. Tony Pulis 2-0 from a set piece.
Coates?
I have to agree with the new manager bounce. I mean, we've seen it in all the championship ones already, but even further down, Nigel Clough at the weekend, first game, first victory. We saw it with Forest. We saw it with Barnsley. I can't see beyond a Sheffield Wednesday win. We discussed the long-term implications of Pulis, and he has been given a longer deal, which is the thing that surprised me the most. But Preston are at home, as Charlie said, and that means they're going to lose. And I don't think even an international break can change that. Away from home, this would be different, but at home, it's got to be a Sheffield Wednesday win. The scoreline is something I'm not sure of. I was going to go for the same, but I'll go for 2-1 just to try and make the competition more entertaining.
Well, I'm going to make the competition even more entertaining because I've not gone for a Sheffield Wednesday win. We said about new manager bounce. I think there'll be a new manager bounce, but I don't think it'll be enough for a win, in my opinion. I think Tony Pulis has got to find a way to use his tactics for these sort of players, and I don't think he will get that so early on, in my opinion. But I do think they'll get a draw. I do think they'll get a draw out of it. They have a lot of Sadie Flint's injury. Yeah, as you said, Preston haven't won at home all season. Yeah, I'm going to go for 1-1. Up next to the Kean Prince Foundation Stadium, it's QPR versus Watford. Oh, I can see goals flying in here, Charlie.
Yeah, it's just how many and how many are going in the QPR net because they are the most impossible team to predict in this league. I honestly don't know. If you were to look at what their recent results are, at home they are slightly better, and that's in context. They're still not great at home, but it's better than their away form. Watford are not as good away from home. Obviously still unbeaten at home, but away from home, maybe haven't picked up as many results. Part of that is, I think, actually, because I watched that Ben Foster thing, they flew to Barnsley for crying out loud. He gets a plane. But anyway, that's another story for another time. Yeah, if you watch it, they've got a plane to go to Barnsley. But anyway, so I don't know. QPR will score. I think it's how... Oh, I don't want to go 3-2 because it seems like the obvious answer nowadays, doesn't it, with QPR? But maybe it could happen. It's the Championship. Why not? I'm going to go for another 3-2 Watford win.
Coach?
I really don't know, because if you take QPR, aside from their last game at home to Cardiff, the two home games before that, they drew blanks against Birmingham and Preston. Lyndon Dykes is going to be euphoric. But the other argument there, Craig, is Watford as well. Watford, 2 3-2 wins after what had been a pretty defensive and boring start to the season, albeit effective. But they haven't kept a clean sheet in 6 games. And that's going against the score that I wanted to go for at the start. Because I think the international break's going to change everything here. And the Watford manager will be back to base. And as remarkable as this seems, and I'm going to look ridiculous if it doesn't happen, I'm going for Watford to nick a 1-0 win.
I don't think it's ridiculous, to be honest, because I've actually gone for a clean sheet for Watford as well. Yeah, haven't kept a clean sheet 6, but this is QPR on the other hand. I don't know about this one. But I think Watford have enough quality to beat QPR, in my opinion. And I think It'll be a hard one. It'll be a hard-fought one, but I think it'll be 2 late goals for Watford. So 2-0 win for them. Up next, it's Stoke City versus Huddersfield Town at the Bet365 Britannia Stadium. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to go for a Stoke win. Obviously, last game for Huddersfield was Luton, and I watched that game, and I feel okay. I think they weren't great first half. Second half, they were a lot better. It was a good header for the goal. I'm not going to deny that. Stoke, on the other hand, they beat Reading 3-0 with the scoreline. The overall doesn't really suggest it was a 3-0 win, but they took their chances and won the game, so congratulations to them. But yeah, I think set plays wide. I think Stoke would just do it just enough. So I'm going to go for 2-1 to Stoke. Charlie.
I mean, Stoke at home, not too bad. I think Huddersfield seem to be, they've scored more goals away from home than what they have at home. So you'd like to think maybe they come out and try and be a bit more expansive. But Stoke are probably one of the best teams in the league. I've mentioned this before about playing that counter-attacking football. However, they did have a little bit of a dip after the last international break. And I'm sort of banking on that again. I can't believe I'm saying this because I'm genuinely normally one of his biggest fans. I don't know whether to go for a draw or a sneak Stoke win. I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline 1-0.
I'm not quite sure what to go for here. The thing that's skewing my brain is that Huddersfield 3-0 win at Millwall. But I'm trying to put into my mind that there were plenty of extenuating circumstances. Because otherwise, I mean, Stoke, the last 3 home games, 2 wins and a draw. And that was they've been solid. I can't back against Stoke because I've got them to finish second in the league, so they've got to win their own games. Huddersfield have lost they've lost half of their 6 games, their last 6 games 2-1. So I have to go for the same scoreline. It's going to be 2-1 to Stoke, and I'm sorry because I think that's what Craig went for as well.
I did. Next up at the Liberty Stadium, it's Swansea City versus Rotherham. Oh, I'll tell you what, we all went for Rotherham battery. Last game, they completely threw the spanner in the works for that one. Swansea, on the other hand, yeah, they've just been solid at the moment. Coach, do you expect another Rotherham Baron that you predicted and didn't go that way, or do you think it'll be a lot tighter?
Well, it's very easy to criticise us, isn't it? But let's be honest. Preston, up until that game, were the best team basically in the world away from home this season. So, you know, and we all went for it. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves. But
but you went for 4-0 and just
doesn't matter. But Swansea City are probably one of the few sides actually since lockdown who still have a better record at home. The last 2 home games they've won 2-0. Rotherham generally have struggled a lot on the road. Again, their last 2 wins were at home. The only one they lost was against Luton, ironically. But on the road, they lost to Stoke. They lost to Reading. Swansea are another side of that ilk who I expect to be in the top half of the table and fighting for the playoffs. So I have to go for the same score. It's going to be 2-0 to Swansea. And I'm sorry in advance if Rotherham do it again.
Yeah, I'm sorry in advance to predict the same scoreline, to be honest. As you said, the last 2 games have been 2-0 Swansea at home, and I think it'll make it 3 in a row. 2-0 Swansea. Charlie?
Yeah, I don't think anyone in their right sound mind would have predicted a Rotherham win of that kind. But obviously, you know, probably a few people out there who got a bit of excitement out of that. But yeah, I think it has to go for a Swansea win. Swansea are a lot better at home. As much as we talk about Rotherham winning against Preston, their away record is not very good at all. I think they won 1 game all season away from home. Rotherham are not the worst team going forward. So I think it might nick one, but Swansea, I'm going to copy you two lads, but 2-1 this time.
And the final game at Adams Park, it's Wycombe Wanderers versus Brentford. 2 totally different styles of football being played. And Charlie, start with you.
This is tough because Wycombe had just started to build up a bit of speed, not a bit of speed, a bit of momentum about them. And then there's an international break. So I say a bit of momentum, you know, in the context of the season so far. But Brentford at home, Ivan Toney was he was in a serious scoring streak. So it does all point to a Brentford win, but I don't know, Brentford then in these sorts of games, these are the ones where they tend to blow it or they tend to not play as well as they can do it and end up drawing or something crazy like that. So I don't know whether to go for the head or the heart of it, really. The heart's telling me that actually Brentford don't react very well in these situations and Wycombe might be able to sneak a draw. But the numbers and that point towards Brentford. I'm going to have to play safe. I'm going to go for a Brentford win, but I don't think it's going to be emphatic. I don't think it's going to be as anywhere near as free-flowing as it was before. So I think they might just nick a 1-0 win against Wycombe.
Coach?
Much along the same vein, really. I was really wrestling between my favourite score 1-0 and 2-1 to Brentford because Wycombe have been solid, particularly at home in the last couple. Obviously, they beat Sheffield Wednesday. They got a point against Watford. I know the Forest disappointment before the international break, but Brentford haven't been hugely convincing. But the thing that swayed me is that their big win was away at Luton, who tried to set up in a relatively similar way to be hard to beat, to be that sort of team. They lost against Stoke as well, which is then swinging me back the other way. I just don't know. But they've They've done well away against teams lower down, so I'm going to go for Brentford to nick it by 2-1.
Yeah, I think we're going to go for a Brentford win, to be honest. It's one of those, I think if Brentford score early, it's done. I think they're going to do that, but I think Brentford are going to win this one 3-1. So let's have a quick recap on the prediction for Matchday 12. There's a lot of 1-1s, a lot of 2-2s, just 1-0 for once. That is pretty much it. I'll see a couple of 3-1s for myself, but yeah, we all predicted Wayne Rooney to lose his first game. And those are our predictions for Matchday 12. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Let us know in the comment section down below. Give us your predictions. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and you can follow us on Twitter @HonestFootball3. And we'll see you next time.